All right, can I start?
Yes.
All right, I am Hanna Slome now. I was born Hanna Beer in Ostrava, Czechoslovakia, Moravia, on April 11th, 1925. I lived there till I was just past the age of 13. Do I remember my childhood? Very much so. My father was the chairman of the Maccabi, and he was a lawyer, and he used to take on Sundays, we would take a whole group of children to the mountains, the Beskidi, which are local mountains, and for Sunday we would go hiking. And winters we spent in the Tatra mountains in Slovakia, which are close to like the Swiss mountains, Switzerland. They're very high. Went skiing, and we had about 90 people with us, again through the Maccabi, and he was the chairman. And I have wonderful memories of that. I was young and I wanted to stay up late, and my parents wouldn't let me, and I would have a temper fit, that tantrum, that I couldn't stay up. So the memories were good. We were quite well off. I had a lady come in who I called Sludge, which is shortened for Slečno, which is in Czech lady, who did the homework with me, who took care of me during the day. And we had a living cook who took care of the house and gave me a bath at night and whatever. She came from the Sudetenland, and she was with us for years. I mean, it was like she was like a second mother to me. My mom was 16 years younger than my father, and in those days she was the lady. I remember going to buy perfume with her. She had special perfume made just for herself. So I don't remember that she ever gave me a bath. It was always Poldi who would talk to me. Well, we were invaded on March 15th, 1939, and that day Poldi packs up and leaves. And do I remember that day very well. We were living in an apartment house, but these apartments were big. You had entrance, there were like 6 rooms, and there was a living room and a dining room and a gentleman's room where my father would meet his friends. We had the grand piano. So that in those apartments they had in the connecting in the back, like what do you call these? The open by the apartments. And I screamed and screamed for hours. Poldi come. Her name was Poldi. Poldi come back. Poldi come back. Don't leave us. And the windows just went bang shut. Nobody. It was just the other neighbors, because I was screaming. So I remember that night very well. My father. I had a brother. He was 3 years older, and my father said he had been in the First World War, and wars are ridiculous. They don't solve anything. In fact, he had to fight. With a sable, or what do you call it, with the where you go with the
Sword, archery?
You duel. Had a duel with somebody because he called him an idiot. And my father very quickly also lost his temper and would call anybody idiot, but he was a man with a heart of gold. So the idiot didn't mean anything. He was short-tempered. So he fought that, and he had a big scar right across his stomach here. And so he wanted my brother not to wait for, he didn't think that, he wasn't sure. At that point in Czechoslovakia, we had hoped the whole world would come, and if it ever happened, that the world would stand up. The Sudeten were given up in 1938, and this is where our whole line of defense was for Czechoslovakia. With that, we lost that defense, because when Chamberlain came back with a white paper, I have peace for you now. He gave up Sudetenland, and we were without anyone to defense. We had no defense. So we thought the world would come. If anything further happened, the world would stand up and save us. But my father felt he had gone through one war, so he made arrangements for my brother to get out, and he got a job here at the World's Fair as a baker in America. He was 17 then. He asked him, please, don't let me go across Germany alone, come with me. So the two of them, he packed up a little suitcase, my brother had his regular suitcase. They got to Germany only to find out that that day we had been invaded. So they decided it was ridiculous to go back. He, the leader of the Jewish community, a lawyer and all that, what is he going back for? There's no life for him anymore. So they went on, and even without passport, they went right across the border and became refugees in England. Now it is March. I went out in May. This was March. How my mother found out about Nicky Winton, I don't know. All I know is we packed up. I had never been to Prague before, and we went to Prague, and I remember her at the train station and waving. I remembered my last night with her, saying, just give me your hand, because if I have your hand, you'll be with me. And she said, don't worry, I'll be there. This can't last long. I'll be there in a year, or until it's in a document. There's a documentary where he said, until it blows over. So I do remember that. I remember her at the station, and I waved to her, and it was adventure. I was going on a trip on a train and boat to England. So I had just turned 14. This was May, so my birthday was in April, and my father was there already. So I just felt it'll be fine. On the train, the one memory I have of the whole trip is I was one of the older girls. They gave me a little girl to take care of, who I kept on my lap. And we played a game. It's in German, Hoppa Hoppa Reiter. You put the child on your knees and you go up and down and you pretend to be riding a horse, and then you let them go down and you say booms, and they laugh. So that's what I played with her. She didn't cry. I just waved. I had somebody to take care of, and off we went. I have no recollection of the 4 days otherwise. We were 60 people, according to that. For 50 years, I did not talk about it. What happened during the war, my mother still wrote a few cards. I have the cards from her. It wasn't until after the war that I found out what happened. She was not she did not go to concentration camp till 1942. I left in 39. So in 42 she was in Prague. She wrote to me, she was learning hat making, and things were good, and it can't last forever. So at that point, Hitler kept very good records. I have records of that. I always thought she died in Terezin. Terezin was like a sample concentration camp, only to find out not too long ago that she only spent 1 week there and was shipped on those cattle cars all the way to Treblinka. No, Treblinka or Bergen-Belsen. I forgot. I don't know what. I don't want to know. Anyway, she and her mother went with her, a sister, but they were not on the same transport they went like a week apart. I don't know anything about it afterwards except that she didn't come out. When my father could not find her after the war and could not locate her, he had actually, he had known somebody, but in those days, instead of just being friends, he felt he had to marry her. He was lonely, and he married a refugee woman who was getting a pension. Well, my father wasn't making anything. He was selling Christmas cards at Christmas, so Christmas he had a little money. When Christmas was over, they had no money, and she made him feel very guilty, and he committed suicide. So Dad committed suicide on actually October 48, just on my husband's birthday. That I found out. My brother, the reason was he wanted me to bring him over. I was here in America. What was it like? No, let's say in England. First, let me tell you in England. I arrive in England, but I'm too old to go to school. They had a boarding school for the refugees, but now I'm past the age of compulsory education. I got there just 14. 14 is the compulsory education. So they kept me in school for 6 weeks in the boarding house where I first arrived, and they put me up. And after that, they found me jobs as a maid. I don't know who found it and who got me to these various homes. I was not an easy child to handle. I wanted to go back to school, so walking the dog at 6 o'clock in the morning, or cleaning the house, or cleaning the silver. I wanted to learn. I wanted to learn more. Eventually, through friends, I got a job in what they call public school, which is a private school for boys, and they had an annex for small children, of 6-year-old children, where the parents were in the colonies. And I had a job there, and I think that's why I learned English. I never went to school to learn English, so I picked it up. And being there, somehow through a connection, I must have told them I had a brother. I did not know that it was through me. My brother told me that it was that I got him the job as a French tutor at the age of 17. So this is the schooling he had. He had more schooling than I did. So he had learned some French, and he knew English, and he was very good in languages. So he was the tutor there. From there, that was a better life. Then I learned, I went to a course for stenography. I was kind of stenographer. You wouldn't want me. My English isn't good enough. So it's just colloquial, the way it's spoken. In 1944, I was there nearly 6 years. 1944, the quota, it's wartime, the quota is open, the Czech quota is open, and my father had a brother here, and he gave me the affidavit to come here. So I take, it was a freighter to cross the Atlantic. We were about 16 passengers on that, and I'm 19 at this point, and we are going 21 days across the Atlantic in a convoy. At night, we would lose our way because it was foggy, you can't run the engines. In the morning, we would all gather together, and there were depth charges going down and all that. There were U-boats all over the place. And I decided if I was going to have a good time, I'm sorry, but I was on top of the deck, flirting with the boys. I must say about the English, they never took any advantage of me. They were gentlemen all the way. I mean, I did some funny jokes with them. I had a good time. I was in charge again of somebody. She was 5 years younger than I. A girl who was coming, her parents had escaped earlier, but she came in on the transport. She came in late. Oh, I didn't tell you about the Winton transport, how I got to England. But anyway, she was on that on the same transport. This is the man who saved me, actually. In 1939, May 39, I did mention I had a little girl. And it was Nicholas Winton who was in charge of that transport. And what he did is he had gone to England to go skiing. He was 29 years old, and he was a stockbroker. And his friend was involved with political people who were now in danger of being imprisoned because Hitler had invaded. So this was after. So he said, come here and take a look at the situation. He went to see a camp of the people from the Sudeten, which was a refugee camp. And this must have been now November. And they are there in the very cold, no tents or anything. They took the doors from houses and they tried to make a little, and they make a soup. And they said, who's going to save the children? And they answered him, who wants children? Nobody wants children, we can't get the parents out. So he went back and he went to the government and he said, what do you need for me to bring children to England? And they said, we want a guarantee of 50 pounds per child, which was at that time like $1,000. And because they all thought it was temporary. Nobody thought it was going to be a 5-year war. So he said, and you can do what you want. He even printed passports, fake passports, because the Home Office was not fast enough to get the work done. His mother helped him, his mother worked with him, and they got 669 children out. So that was my story. Now I am in England. He got me out, but he could not help me. Most of the other children were younger. They went to a special school. There's a documentary out. This is the documentary. It says Nicholas Winton, The Power of Good. For about 7 years, it was handed over to any school that wanted it here in America, free of charge. There was the Gelman Foundation, who he was a very wealthy man who came to one day to visit the concentration camps, and the woman who actually was co-producer, Martina Stolbova, she's on here, was the guide at Auschwitz and at Terezin. And if she saw a very rich Jewish person, she said, you know, I have a very good documentary for you to see. And so he took it on. He was so impressed, and it was like something he could do with his money. And he wanted to in the Czech Republic, everybody knows the story. In England, everybody knows the story, but not in America. So he said, and this is where I spoke from all the way to the East Coast. And he was willing to give to anyone who wanted to study this program a free documentary. Later on, a book came out to go with the documentary called Lottery of Life, which the Hadassah paid $25,000 for, and other people, and there were thousands of copies made. And these were handed out. And whenever this was shown, I was invited to speak. So I've spoken to a lot of universities, a lot of schools, a lot of different meetings. Now this is happened in, this is after 39, this is my life here. This is happened much later. For 50 years, my beginning here in America, I didn't make out too well. I had $25 jobs, and I wasn't getting anywhere. I was going to Jamaica High School, and I couldn't get a high school diploma. I kept on failing American history and English. I think it was English. Did I fail English? No, algebra. 2 things. So I decided to look for a husband. My girlfriend gave a party. I met this man there, but he sort of looked at me and he said he wasn't interested in a poor refugee. I was living that time in Kew Gardens in a room under the attic for $6 a week. When it got hot, I would put wet towels on the bed to try and cool off. There was no air conditioning in those days. Anyway, I'm happy to say he wanted to marry money. During the whole war, he dated a Belgian girl who was very bright and very beautiful, who came to visit my mother-in-law. And but at the end of the war, he was still in the army. He stayed in the army. At the end of the war, he proposed to her, and her father said, "How are you going to support her?" And he said, "Don't worry, I will make it. She will never go hungry." But the father didn't want it. He said, "You have to come into business with me." They were diamond cutters. And he said, "I do not work for a father-in-law." And with that, I got him. Because I was always crazy about him. But he did not, he kept up the friendship. It was very funny. I would get like a card once or twice a year.
Can I show the picture?
That's him. Oh yeah, sure, you can. This is what I look like. That's my husband. Who I was, well, right? We were married 25 years, and it was the best marriage ever. He said to me that time, oh, I have to tell you the funny thing about how he proposed, because I was always ready. He knew I loved him and I'd do anything for him. He said one morning, one evening he called up, I want to see you tomorrow. I said, please, it's finished, don't start again. I can't go through this. Be downstairs. So he takes me downstairs, we take the subway, we take the ferry. That was the big ocean trip he took me on, and we go to Staten Island, and we take the bus, and we walk around Silver Lake. And I'm a big talker, I never shut up. Well, he took my hand, and I was quiet. I knew by the touch of his hand that this was it. And that was my proposal. He said, do you know what's happening? I said, yes, we're going to get married. And we got married in October. And it was, I have no regrets, not one regret. We worked very hard. He really, I never went hungry. We never had to struggle. I have 2 children, and they're both great. And he was the greatest lover that you can imagine. He was experienced. He had quite his story is quite interesting. He came via Portugal. They escaped from Berlin. He's from Berlin, came via Portugal, had several women there, divorced women. He knew how to make love, that's all I can tell you. It was the most romantic marriage. We had fun. We really had fun to the last day. He, I don't know, he got his first heart attack, had about, I don't remember now, 18 electric shock treatments, made history at the Booth Memorial at that time, and that they have a record of him, the first heart attack, and he died with a second heart attack at the age of 52. But anyway, you wanted to know more about me.
No, I want to know that.
So I married him, and this is it now. This is I told you, coming across the ocean with this girl who was 14. Her name is Marian Feigl. And I didn't keep in touch with her because she was 5 years younger. I'm 19 and 14, you don't keep in touch. Well, one day there is the reunion at the Neverly Hotel for the Kindertransport. That's the 10,000 that was saved. That's a whole separate thing. That's not Winton transport. 10,000. My daughter is living with me, and she said, Ma, why don't you go? You know so little about your background, the history, what happened. I said, well, I'll just go Saturday, because I don't know anyone, I've never met anyone, and I'll be back at night. And I walk into that hotel, and there were 500 people attending, and all this welcome, hello, the recognition. They had gone through orphanages, they had met otherwise, and they kept in touch. There is a Kindertransport organization, but I never joined it because I didn't feel I was that a part of that. Got a tissue there, got to take it out. So I was so impressed with the classes they had during the day that I stayed. And one of them was very interesting. They put us in groups, and we are trying to figure out, we have projects to do, like questions and get it done, like question answer. And I'm always, come on, let's get it fast. And I'm working with one woman, and she's as slow as can be. I said, you were given 5 minutes, let's go. No, the next thing is, I am sitting in another group with a husband, and we are talking about it, and I don't know quite now but I found out a lot about myself. Oh, and we're talking about moving, and I realized that most of us, it is very difficult to move. I'm living here now 53 years. I should not be living here. It's a big house, it's falling apart. I am thousands of miles away from my children. One is in Israel, one is in California. I'm here all by myself. I can't move. I was offered money. I nearly had a nervous breakdown. So this is part of what this whole situation has done to me. I mean, I'm happy here. It's amazingly, I'm happy here. I'm happy in the house with all the memories and all that I have. So that was one of the things. It was a wonderful event. And at lunch, we are sitting at the table, and there was nothing from Czechoslovakia. And I said, you see, Judy, my Judy, there's no one here, just 8 people. And we're having lunch. 4 people from Bohemia, Moravia, 4 people from Slovakia. It's slightly different language, Slovak and Czech. And the woman next to me turns around. She said, did you ever come across a Hanna Bear? And I said, who are you? I said, I'm Hanna Bear. At that point, I was Hanna Slome, but I'm Hanna Bear. Who are you? I said, I am Marion, the one that came across the Atlantic with you. And you were so good to me. I was sick from the minute we got onto the boat. I was seasick the whole time. And you fed me, you brought me food. I know you were, I was up on the deck. And she remembered. She said, you know, there's a documentary coming out. I have contact with England. And they're showing it in Connecticut. Do you want to come with me? Well, it's been 60 years now. I did not talk about it. I did not want to. There was nothing. What was I going to say? Go through all that? There was not a happy memory. I just want to say my brother also committed suicide, but that happened a little later. So it's my father committed suicide, my brother, my mother dies, and the whole family, the rest of the family died in concentration camp. My uncle wasn't that good to me. I mean, I didn't want to talk about it. I had a happy marriage, that's all that counted. I went. I saw the movie, and it is this movie, which, by the way, is in the library. It says All My Loved Ones. That was his first movie. And it is a fiction of the whole thing, how Nicky Winton got the names and got the people to allow their children to go.
It's fiction, not non-fiction.
Fiction. This is fiction.
Okay.
It's all fiction. This is fiction, but it's a movie, and if you look it up in the library, they have it. You have to look. It's not, I'm sure, on the shelf anymore. I got it once on the shelf, long time ago. So at the end of it, there's a list, and I said to turn around to Marion, could I be on the list? She said, why don't you write to England? And that's how I found out that Nicholas Winton saved me. I have the list of all the 669 children, and I'm on it. So now they didn't reach me because I was in that school in England, and I didn't leave a forwarding address. So then there was if you want, the documentary was all that in. They have like This Is Your Life on television, and he gets called, and they had written to all these children, and 200 answered. And they came to This Is Your Life when Nicky was interviewed. There was another, then was the second reunion, there was the second reunion here. So this is how I found out. From that moment on, the first...
Have you met him?
Many times. The first show of that film was at on Broadway at the I was called Symposium. That's not, what is it? Symphony Space. Symphony Space. Man in New Jersey spent the money to. He was the director in Symphony Space. One of the made the arrangements for the film to be shown, for Nicky to be flown over. He wants to come only in a Concorde. So they brought him in a Concorde, and they stayed at the Lucerne, which was a fancy hotel. They stayed here a week. I got to meet quite a few, about 20 of the survivors, and the Martina, who was the co-producer, was going to stay on and see if she can further the film. So I said, come and stay with me in my house. Together we traveled to Florida, to Philadelphia, to Rhode Island, and I learned an awful lot about how the film actually came about, where Mate found all in the archives, because it's a wonderful film of archives and current. It's back and forth, so it's not all tears. It's a one, and they got an Emmy. This won an Emmy.
Wow.
But you can't show it in regular movie houses because it's only a documentary. So now he made another documentary, another film, and I want to tell you, this is being shown, its opening July 19th in New York City. It's going to be in Kew Gardens for a whole week. Malvern, in downtown in the Quad, the Greenwich Village or something Quad, whatever it's called down there. And it starts on July 19th. This is his film. The film that is similar, has some of the documentary in it. It's called Nikki's Children. I went to Atlanta, Georgia for 3 days last year. Wade opened there and spoke. It's a very good film. It got wonderful reviews, but really it hasn't gotten an Oscar yet. So now the opening is apparently here, July 19th.
Wow.
So
There
do
we
you want
go.
any more?
Yes, absolutely.
Well, this is what I mean. No, stop now, because I don't want to repeat myself.
Okay, thank you.